Something that's really not lost on me is that we have a Democrat and a Republican sitting together talking about this, agreeing on this in a highly partisan time. Senator Blumenthal, you said one of the first things that came out of your mouth in this interview was that you really appreciated the bipartisan nature of this act. And Senator Blackburn, you seem to concur. Aside from this legislation, I have a question for the both of you. Are there any other policy areas that you can see yourself working on across the aisle?
Yes, there are. Very definitely.
We've actually got a couple of other pieces of legislation, and let's see, the Online App Market Act, online privacy,
right.
And then we did the baseball bill.
That's
and so, yeah, we're working on things that are good for consumers, good for the American people.
And by the way, this is the way Congress should be and the way it used to be. Mm-hmm. And I'm really just delighted and inspired in a way that we're able to work together in this way, because frankly, it restores my hope. I just ran for re-election and won with the hope that Congress would be doing exactly this kind of thing. And the fact that we have developed these pieces of legislation that have bipartisan support, I think is really encouraging.
It's really refreshing to see, for sure. And in this highly partisan time, it really says something that you're getting such an overwhelmingly positive response to the legislation. But I did see a letter that over 90 human rights organizations and LGBTQ groups, including the ACLU and GLAAD, signed a letter of opposition to the legislation at the end of 2022 that said in part the following. While COSA's aims of preventing harassment, exploitation, and mental health trauma for minors are laudable, the legislation is unfortunately likely to have damaging, unintended consequences for young people. I pose the question to you both. What is your response?
Let me just say, I greatly respect the views that have been expressed by some organizations like the ACLU, an organization who does great work, and their objections to any sort of potential constraints on speech. Well, that's a point of view I respect as well. But there is a balance that has to be struck. And sometimes it involves some modifications on speech. No right is absolute. We have reached out to the ACLU, to those organizations that joined in that letter, and we've modified the legislation. We've done some changes that I think accommodate many of their concerns. At the end of the day, and I think Senator Blackburn has been a great partner and supporter in this effort, because we've held together our bipartisan coalition, there has to be some compromise. We know that legislation is never going to accomplish everything that we want, everything they want, but I think it makes a tremendous advance in keeping kids safer. That's why it's called the Kids Online Safety Act. And I'm really hopeful that we have met some of the criticisms and objections. We've made changes, and I'm hoping that our coalition will be very, very broad.
And senators, one final question. Let's talk a hypothetical here. Let's say the bill is signed into law tomorrow. How quickly could these safeguards be put into effect?
Right away.
Yeah, once the bill is signed into law, it is in effect. So the social media platforms would need to make their adjustments immediately. And I would say as soon as it passes the Senate and the House, even before it is signed, they will begin. I think they're getting the message that Congress is not going to sit still and let them act like it's the Wild West. Our children are not their product. And because of that, some guidelines are going to be put in place, and we expect them to adhere to them.